Have you ever wondered, am I on some kind of secret blacklist? You apply, you interview, you follow up, and then nothing. Or worse, you apply again to the same company months later and get auto-rejected almost instantly. And then someone on YouTube says, you might be on the do not hire list. Now your mind starts racing. Is there a hidden database? Is there an industry-wide blacklist? Are employers sharing my name behind closed doors? Today, I'm going to give you the truth. Not the dramatic version, not the fear-based version, the real version from someone who has worked inside recruiting teams at major organizations. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand whether these lists actually exist, what really triggers internal flags, and why most rejections have nothing to do with blacklist, and what to do if you think you've been flagged. So let's clear this up once and for all. If you're a seasoned professional navigating today's hiring market, make sure you subscribe and tap the bell. This channel is about clarity, not panic, and clarity wins careers. One of the biggest misconceptions about do not hire list is that there's some kind of secret industry-wide blacklist being passed around behind the scenes. There isn't. There is no master database shared across corporate America where recruiters are uploading names. But that doesn't mean internal flags don't exist. They do. And this is where nuance matters. Inside most mid-sized and enterprise organizations, hiring is structured, documented, and systems-driven. Recruiters use applicant tracking systems. Every interview leaves notes. Every disposition is recorded. Every stage of the process is logged. And in rare cases, candidates can be marked in ways that prevent future contact. Not casually, not emotionally, but administratively. Now, here's the important distinction. Internal flags are not the same thing as universal blacklists. They live inside one organization system. They're tied to documented reasons, and they're typically triggered by behavior, not by bad luck. And this is where context matters. If we haven't met yet, my name is Chuksugata. Most people know me as Dr. A. I'm an executive career coach and former executive recruiter. I've worked inside both small and large enterprise organizations where hiring was centralized, tracked, and governed by policy. I've also helped senior level professionals navigate complex hiring processes, especially when they're worried something in their past might be holding them back. So when I talk about do not contact designations, internal notes, or ineligible for hire status, this isn't internet speculation. It's based on what I've seen inside recruiting systems and what I now help professionals interpret from the outside. Because here's what happens. When someone experiences repeated rejection, especially within a specific company or industry, the mind starts looking for a dramatic explanation. It must be a blacklist. That feels more concrete than uncertainty, but hiring systems are operational, not emotional. And if you don't understand how those systems actually function, it's easy to misinterpret what's happening or to internalize something that may have very little to do with your capability or value. So what we're going to do next is separate myth from mechanism. What's real, what's rare, and what's simply misunderstood. Let's slow this down and deal with the biggest fear directly. There is no centralized cross-company do not hire blacklist shared across employers. No master spreadsheet, no hidden HR coalition, no secret industry registry that recruiters log into before calling you. That simply is not how hiring operates. Every organization runs its own applicant tracking system, its own database, its own internal documentation process. And from a legal standpoint, broad sharing of negative candidate information across companies would introduce serious liability risk, including defamation, privacy violations, and compliance concerns. Employers are extremely cautious about what they share externally. Even reference checks are tightly structured and often limited to verifying employment dates and titles. So, the idea that companies are casually circulating blacklists behind the scenes, that's not grounded in how corporate governance actually works. Now, here's why the myth persists. When someone applies to multiple companies within the same industry and keeps getting rejected, the pattern can feel coordinated, especially in smaller industries, especially at senior levels. And especially if you've worked in a tight professional network, it can start to feel like they must be talking. But what's usually happening is something far more ordinary. Your background overlaps with a narrow niche. Recruiters know similar hiring leaders. Market conditions are tight. There may be internal candidates, budgets may be frozen, or your positioning isn't landing the way you think it is. None of that requires a blacklist. It requires market dynamics. And here's something else most people don't realize. Recruiters are overwhelmed. They're managing hundreds of applicants per role, multiple open requisitions, internal stakeholders, offer negotiations, compliance documentation. They're not running investigative campaigns against individual candidates. The system is built for scale, not surveillance. Now, can reputations travel informally within professional circles? Of course. Professional networks exist. Hiring leaders talk. Industries are small. But that is not the same thing as a formal blacklist. That's professional ecosystem reality. And ecosystem reality cuts both ways. Strong reputations travel too. Referrals travel. Positive impressions travel. Executive endorsements travel. The same network effect that fuels fear can also fuel opportunity. So before you assume you're on some invisible list, pause. Most rejections are not systemic punishment. They're alignment gaps, and alignment can be recalibrated. That's empowering, not threatening, because a myth makes you powerless, but strategy gives you leverage. And that's the shift I want you to make here. There is no universal blacklist controlling your career. There are systems, there are standards, there are decisions, but those decisions are company specific, and that means your option remain far broader than fear would have you believe. Now let's go a layer deeper. When organizations use internal flags like do not contact or ineligible for rehiring, those designations are not emotional reactions. They're administrative decisions. And this is important. In most structured recruiting environments, especially in mid-sized to large enterprises, recruiters cannot simply wake up one morning and decide to permanently blacklist someone because they didn't like them. There are audit trails. There are compliance standards. There are HR oversight processes. If someone is marked as ineligible, there is usually documentation attached to that record. Why? Because those systems are discoverable. If there were ever a legal dispute, internal notes could be reviewed. So companies are careful, very careful. Now, what typically triggers these flags? Not awkward interviews, not salary negotiations, not withdrawing from a process. It's usually one of three categories: integrity issues, behavioral issues, policy violations. For example, if someone falsifies credentials and is verified, that's serious. If a background check reveals discrepancies between what was represented and what was documented, that's serious. If a candidate becomes aggressive, threatening, or harasses employees during the process, that's serious. If someone repeatedly ignores communication boundaries and begins contacting executives after being told not to, that can escalate quickly. But here's what I want to normalize. These situations are uncommon. The average candidate who interviews and doesn't get selected is not being flagged. They're being dispositioned. There's a difference. Disposition means not selected for the role. Flagged means do not engage again due to documented concern. Those are two very different administrative categories. And in most organizations, flagged designations are usually sparingly, precisely because they are serious. Recruiters don't want to eliminate potential future talent unnecessarily. Markets change, leadership change, business needs shift. Burning a bridge permanently inside the system is not something organizations do lightly. So if you've simply been rejected even multiple times, that does not automatically imply you were flagged. Rejection is common. Disqualification due to misconduct is rare. And that distinction should lower your anxiety immediately, because one is part of competitive hiring. The other is the result of very specific behaviors, and most seasoned professionals watching this are nowhere near that line. Here's another layer most professionals don't see from the outside. When hiring is centralized under a parent company, the applicant tracking system becomes the single source of truth. That means your profile isn't siloed by department or geography, it's unified. So if you apply to Division A in Texas, Division B in California, Division C overseas, the same system is often reviewing your history, same notes, same prior interview feedback, same eligibility status. And here's where perception can get distorted. From your perspective, it feels like multiple independent rejection. From the company's perspective, it's one continuous candidate record. And that's not punishment, that's data continuity. Large organizations do this for efficiency, compliance, and risk management. It ensures consistency across the enterprise. But if you're working in a niche field, healthcare, IT, biotech, fintech, defense, contracting, industries where a few major players own significant market share, the ecosystem can feel smaller than it actually is. And if one of those major players houses multiple brands under one umbrella, you may unknowingly be applying into the same corporate infrastructure repeatedly. Again, this is not a global blacklist. It's a structural centralization, and understanding that distinction helps you respond strategically instead of emotionally, because once you understand the structure, you can adjust your approach accordingly. And that's awareness, not alarm. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The vast majority of rejections are boring. They're about alignment, skills, budget, timing, internal candidates, compensation bands, headcount freezes. According to industry hiring surveys, a single corporate role can receive hundreds of applicants and only a small percentage ever reach interview stage. When you don't hear back, it is almost always value, not vengeance. But our brains prefer dramatic explanations. It must be a blacklist that feels more concrete than my positioning might be sharp enough. And if you're a seasoned professional, sometimes the issue isn't capability, it's translation. How you articulate value, how you align to the role, how you tell your story. That's strategy, not stigma. Now I want to pause. If you're getting something out of this video, please do me a favor and tap that like button. It really helps with the algorithm in reaching other professionals who could benefit from this video. Quick question for you. Have you ever worried that you were blacklisted from a company? Or has a rejection ever felt personal, even if you didn't know why? Drop a comment below. I want to normalize this conversation because fear grows in silence, and I don't want you to be in fear. Now, let's say you genuinely suspect something happened. Here's what strategic professionals do. Number one, assess honestly. Did anything occur that could reasonably have triggered a concern? Not emotionally, objectively. Was there a discrepancy, a tense interaction, a negotiation that went sideways? If the answer is no, that's important data. If the answer is yes, that's direction. Number two, repair professionally. If appropriately, if there was a miscommunication, a heated exchange, or confusion, reach out calmly, briefly, maturely, not to argue the decision, not to relegate the outcome, but to reset the tone. Sometimes clarity alone is enough to prevent a permanent no from becoming a lasting impression. Three, don't escalate emotionally. Repeated emailing, calling executives, tagging people on LinkedIn, and posting publicly will only confirm concerns. Hiring systems log behavior, and escalation rarely improves a candidate's standing. Four, shift your focus. Even if one organization is closed, the market is larger than you think. No company controls your entire industry. No recruiter controls your entire future. Professionals who move forward tend to recover faster than those who fixate. Five, rebuild your positioning. Often what feels like a blacklist is actually a branding gap. Maybe your resume isn't aligned. Maybe your story isn't landing. Maybe you're applying broadly instead of strategically. That's not a punishment, that's a signal, and signals can be adjusted. Because here's the bigger truth. If you are truly flagged for something serious, you will likely know why. If you don't know why, chances are you're not dealing with a blacklist. You're dealing with strategy, and strategy is fixable. So let me leave you with this. The hiring system is structured. It's documented, it's logged, compliant. Recruiters do not casually mark people as ineligible. That's a serious designation. If someone is flagged, there is usually documentation behind it. But if you have not engaged in misconduct, dishonesty, or extreme behavior, you're almost certainly not on a do not hire list. What you're likely facing is market competition, misalignment, or messaging issues. And those are solvable. Don't let the internet fear narratives shrink your confidence. There is no secret corporate council deciding your fate. There are systems, there are notes, there are policies, but there is also opportunity, mobility, and strategy. And if something didn't work in one place, you refine, you recalibrate, you move forward. That's how professionals win. If you're currently navigating a career transition, we'd love to see if we can help. Sign up to join our exclusive email list, get exclusive insights designed to help you land your next role. Sign up today by clicking on the link below and take control of your job search. And if this topic resonated with you, you'll want to watch my video on It's Not Just You, Job Hunting is Becoming Harder. And finally, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment below. See you next time. Over and out.